If you think about all of the applications that you...
So with AI, that's kind of...
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Access 360 podcast. This is actually episode number 7. And speaking of numbers, we will be talking about numbers today. For anyone who may be tuning into the Access 360 podcast for the first time, we bring great people together to talk about important ideas and watch how things evolve, see what we can learn from one another, and ideally see what you can learn from the conversation. And we tend to bring relevant topics to the business world and then have great thought leaders come together and discuss them, share some insights, maybe come away with our own insights, and hopefully you do as well. We've got a number of guests today, so maybe I'll just go around and we can do some quick intros, who you are, where your area of specialties is, and what you're most excited about. And I'll frame the conversation after we do some quick intros about the actual topics, but in general, numbers. So Trina, let me go to you first. Who are you? What are you doing? And how do you feel about numbers?
Hey, David, thanks for having me on. I'm Trina Realcoff. I own TLR Solutions for Conflict, and I'm in conflict management, risk mitigation in the workplace and culture.
And numbers.
I'm in Canada. And in numbers, what are numbers all about is when you're looking at conflict costs. Numbers is all about money, time, and personal people. The people that show up are engaged or not engaged. So numbers reflect patterns of cost, time, and money in workplace and workplace culture.
I love it. So conflict does have a cost. Numbers might measure that cost. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. Trina is someone who has been part of our Morning Rush community for 3.5 years, 910 episodes I figured out today. So numbers are present, but also an authority, I would say, an expert in the things that are trauma, resilience, workplace environments, and culture, and excited to see how this conversation evolves. Lisa Mosby, another OG from the Morning Rush, and someone who I consider an incredible friend, an incredible businesswoman. Lisa, give us a little intro about you, what you do, and what you feel about numbers.
Fun to be on the receiving side of an interview. I'm a podcast host for the show's called A Bit of Insight. I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years, and my specialties are really wellness. I'm a retired holistic health practitioner, and I'm a world traveler. So I've been to 27 countries and lots of states. And when I think of numbers, when I was coaching entrepreneurs for their business, I taught a workshop called Get Naked with Your Numbers. And it was all about backing into how many referrals do we want? How many people do we want to talk to in a day? The bottom line number I found for most people is how many conversations are you going to have for a day? All of that can extrapolate to what your income is going to be for the year. So there's one number to me in business, and that's how many conversations are you having? Who are you engaging with so that you can actually sell them or assist them with their needs, offering the product that you have. In the wellness realm, it's a little different. We look at lab tests, we look at the scale to see where your weight is at, and all of those numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol levels, that's all data. And again, we use those numbers to figure out what's optimal for us at our number age and our how old we are and how old we feel, maybe two different numbers, or how old the lab results say we are. Right now, I'm 10 years younger than my actual age in my body, which is awesome. I love that. So we can look at numbers for so many things. But I think the important thing, the takeaway for me is we have to look at numbers. The numbers are the data that tell us what's happening, what's going on, whether it's in business, in health, just in the world. The numbers matter. So I'm glad to be here and be part of this conversation today. Thanks, David.
Good to have you, Lisa. Yeah, I remember you shared about that training that you do and how important numbers are. And I think it's on the PBD podcast. The Tom has a mug, but it says I think it's words talk, but numbers scream or something like that. And I'll have to get that quote exactly and ready. But this is exciting. I'm excited for where this conversation is going to go. One of our OG members of this podcast and an OG member of the Morning Rush conversation, Mr. Brian May is with us. He's been here from the beginning of the Access 360 and is one of our, I'd say, grandfathered in co-hosts, because he and I started a podcast before this became formal and we were doing our own little talk thing. Brian, who are you? What do you do? And what are you thinking about numbers?
Fantastic. Thank you. First of all, I totally agree with Lisa. The most important number is how many conversations, how many people you reach out to. Fact. As far as myself, I'm Brian May. I am a realtor. I am a real estate investor. I am a coach for people who had a challenge in their life and looking for a comeback. And this year, I have a lot of numbers. And I think the most important thing, and someone said it, is having a target. I think when you have something that you looking forward to, you get the motivation, you know, it's like an analogy of you're in a car, you have navigation, but if you don't put any address in there, you're just going to keep driving around the block. You're not going to get to where you want to go. So it's about putting in the destination and really looking where you're going.
Let's get a target. Let's see where we're going. And away we go. Tony, just to acknowledge Brian. Brian's someone, and I've said this on previous podcasts, but someone who he and I just had like great conversations, and it came to the point where it was like, we should just record these conversations. And so when great people are having great conversations and they're chock full of wisdom and nuggets, we decided to start this thing. So here's the evolution of it. Tony is a number guy. I think Brian coined him as some title around facts, the fact man. I forget what the title was, but
the stat man or something. Jordan, wasn't it Jordan?
Stat man. I think it was Stat man. All right, we're evolving and we're getting the right title. It'll come eventually, what it should be. But Tony's the incredible co-host of this podcast as well. Tony, who are you? What are you doing? And how do you feel about numbers?
So Tony Ajar, I'm a business consultant for AVS. So blessed to be here. And I'm actually in Uganda. So just to see what I'm doing and where I'm at, that's where I'm at. I'm in Africa, enjoying the beautiful weather, by the way. The weather is absolutely amazing. I used to think Florida was probably the best weather in all the world. And then I came here, but Florida to me is still a close second. I remember I took data analytics in school, and before that it was called statistics, and just in the new time period, probably within the last 10 years, they called it data analytics. But I remember, I can't think of the name, so there goes, I'm rusty with the stats. But I do remember the quote, and if I could think of the name, I'll say it. But he said, statistics are like bikinis. What they reveal is suggestive, but what they conceal is vital, right? And Levenstein, and I can't think his first name, maybe you guys know it, Aaron Levenstein, that's who it was. But numbers and analytics, and data, they enable decision making instead of hope. A lot of times people are just hoping that things are going to change, but when you can start to look at the numbers, you can start to look at the data, it actually puts a target of how you can actually get to the proper decisions that are going to ultimately accomplish your vision. They guard against risk, they guard against waste. They convert ambiguity into clarity. So there's a lot of things that analytics does, and data and numbers. And and I'll pass it back on to David. You there? He froze again. Okay.
Speaking of numbers, I just got my numbers from my virtual assistant. She sent me a timesheet. So there's how numbers can show up one other way in your world. What does it cost?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's huge, especially in the virtual staffing business. And, getting those numbers, David's really good about that. When we're doing consultations, it's like, hey, this is what we like to do. This is what we recommend to businesses. Get those numbers at the end of the night so we can look at it, so you can look at it, so you can see what was done, how you can kind of direct what's happening in the future. So that was a great point. Thank you, Lisa.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
I got your back, David.
Thank you for having my back. All right, I'm going to frame the conversation. I just put it in our collective chat here, but there's a few different topics we'll go through today. So if you're tuning in, this is what's coming your way in terms of the power of numbers. One, what's a number that drives your business? What's the key number that really matters most for your growth and success? It might be worthwhile to think about that, define it, and we're going to see how everybody here thinks about that particular question. Number two, clarity through measurement. I think we heard some of that in the intro. How does knowing your number create focus and maybe freedom? Maybe there's a freedom element inside of knowing some of the numbers within the business. And then the number three, which is the number that defines your life. We're going beyond business. What number matters most to you personally? And that may be something like, I never thought of that. And maybe you never need to think about it again, but maybe thinking about it might be revelatory. I don't know how you say that word, but it might be revealing. So with that, we're going to go kind of around the horn and we'll ping pong and popcorn a little bit as we go through these conversations. But the first one is, how do you look at numbers that drive your business? And we'll keep the order consistent until we get out of order. But Trina, when you think, I know we talked about this in the morning rush, and you said I left that conversation and then I came back to this conversation, and you might have been in some quantum physics land or something like that. But what's coming up for you around your business, thinking about numbers? Where are you coming in on that?
Well, yeah, it was like we hung up from the morning rush and I was looking at what you titled this podcast, 360, and what does that represent? Earth rotation. Then I looked at my logo on my LinkedIn and it had the infinity. And then it was kind of aligning. When we look at numbers, sometimes in business and in life, we put them static and they end. We don't look at that ongoing growth and the dynamic ability to use numbers in risk assessment, in measurement, in language and communication. So when I look at conflict and being conflict curious, and I engage in conversations and mediations or culture assessments under, psychological health and safety, the number of people that show up when they have opportunities to speak and share confidentially one-on-one or in surveys will then reveal the patterns and what is the underlying environment in our organizations, in our business. And sometimes like conflict, people fear conflict. Myself, sometimes you fear numbers and you don't want to look. So even looking at your own bank account, do you keep track, financial management, your customers? Sometimes there's that fear associated with numbers. So how do we become curious and know that numbers are a way to help us make decisions, recognize patterns, life-changing opportunities, because our world just keeps going and it rotates 360. Day, time, the times just changed, right? So it's in everything we do. We just sometimes need to pay a little bit more attention.
I love thinking about that. The 360 rotation, infinity. Is there any number in your business or from your past business experience where like actually focusing on that particular number, or maybe there's a number right now that you're focused in on as you're doing what you're doing, growing and scaling and thinking about things? What's one number, and it doesn't have to be the number, but what's one number that's been important for you?
For me, knowing that I'm starting my business and growing, I have a key number of how much I need to make each year, right? And what scaling looks like in relation to my house I live in currently right now in Canada, and my goal to downsize in the next few years. So there's numbers of what I want to walk away with and pocket, but then in my daily business each year, knowing its growth, and I'm not looking at a static number, and if I don't achieve it, I've failed. It's looking at what do I want to meet as my baseline. And
Right.
that's that recognition of growth in numbers. It's not static, but look at my patterns. And if the numbers of my income or contacts decreases, what do I need to do? But it's also recognizing in life that influence, because life changes for people, certain things happen. So right now in life, measurement is also in relationship to not only my business, but how I get up in my daily movement of restoring and repairing some health related issues that are impacting my business, and not being afraid of a decrease in numbers, because it's all part of the pattern in the journey.
Amazing. And are those numbers for you? You know, obviously I don't have to reveal them here, but are those like clear numbers for you? Are those numbers you're clarifying? Because I know sometimes when I'm thinking about numbers, it's like, oh, I should have that number. And now I'm going to go figure out that number, and that pops for me and that becomes valuable. Where are you at in like really clearly defining yours?
Yeah, business, I have a solid defined number for the next year and for this past year. But it kind of looks like in retrospect, like when I had my house up for sale, I had a solid number of what I wanted to walk away with, pocket cleared, all real estate fees, all legal fees, everything taken away. And I got offers and I was $25,000 off my ideal walk away. I wasn't willing to negotiate because that was in my head, heart, soul. That was the number I wanted to receive. And if I didn't receive it, I was okay with saying no. So sometimes when we're looking at numbers in business, it's also recognizing our risk intelligence. What kind of risks are we taking related to our business? Our client number, our income number, our growth number, future forecasting.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
That's great.
All right. Here's how this will, you got something, Tony? You got to
Yeah, I
cross-examine?
was just going to add, because what she
Yeah.
said, they always, say that the most important things is not always the things you say yes to, but the things that you say no to. And so that just reminded me when she's making decisions, she has it set. She's like, the answer is no, because I know the goal, I know the vision, I know where I want to get. And I love that.
Amazing. And we didn't create a clear structure for this conversation, but because I think Tony and Brian are, regulars on this, and we're highlighting Lisa and Trina, so I'll let each of them kind of give comments based on what was said, and then we'll go to Lisa on her thought on point number one. But Brian, anything that came up? I know you take notes. I know you've got some great ideas, and what do you got with Trina share with us?
So she shared a lot. It was great. I do love what Tony just said, which is what Trina said, which is very important to say no. And I think that the more I personally go forward, the more it's important, right? You got to say no. It's really got to focus. I've been noticing that, talking about numbers, talking about time, my time is very limited because I have a 6-year-old and I have to be certain places at certain times. And my past self, which feels like not even this lifetime, I would work from like 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so there was a lot of time to go and hang out and drink coffee. There was a lot of time to maybe make that phone call that wasn't maybe business related. It was like basically I was working 12 hours a day. Now it's like I really have to be regimented, and I'm changing my calendar for 15 to 30-minute blocks, and this is what it is. And then as soon as that number's up, I'm done. So that I think is very important. And as far as like having that number that you really want, I think I'm not saying this has to do with Trina, but just in general, you also have to remember, like, you have to know if your number is actually going to happen. Because what I've seen on the flip side of that is people want a certain number, let's just say for real estate, right? And they can't get it.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, okay, can you get it or can't you get it? And if you can't, okay, well, we don't know where the market's going. Obviously, New York, just for example, is still going up. Florida is coming down. So it's like, you don't know, when you hear these real estate things, it's usually nationwide. So, so the other way of looking at, of like the 25,000, is 25,000 worth not getting? Is it worth killing the deal over? Now listen, if the property is $100,000 property, well, then $25,000 is very significant. If it's a $3 million property, I'm probably going to say, okay, it would be great to have another 25, but let's move forward. It doesn't make sense to kill a $3 million deal over 25K. So there's a lot of factors in there. So, but I love what you're saying. And the last thing I'll mention is one of the most important numbers for my business and for, I think, everyone's business. It's not so much how many conversations, and it's not so much how many touches, but the intention and the quality behind those touches. Because what I've noticed in the spiritual world, and what I've noticed with some people that are beginning their business journey, is they're spending too much time being fake productive, talking to people that aren't actually producing the money. So yes, you need to have the right amount of calls. You need to have the right amount of touches and following up. At the same time, you really need that spidey sense of, is this going to produce money or is this just a conversation?
Yes, yes, I
Good.
think that's highly relevant. I'm sure. Uh, in terms of like, are we just spinning wheels? Wheels that aren't producing
Yes.
anything. You know, revenue. People might say revenue producing activities. Like, is that what we're doing, or are we just like, oh, I think I should go to this event. It's probably good if I meet some good relationships, but like, we don't actually have a plan. We don't actually have follow up, and so I have a plan. I'm going to go to Lisa now for her views on point number one, numbers that drive your business. What are key numbers? Lisa, where do you come in on this point?
I want to comment on what Brian was saying first, and that is that some of those conversations that aren't revenue producing today are revenue producing in the future. And I think a lot of that you brought up the spiritual piece of it. So I think in business, when we do things with intention, like I'm going to take this meeting right now, my intention is to close this, and I have a picture in my mind of what my target is in this conversation. If I go to a networking meeting, I have a target in mind that I'm going to collect 25 business cards, or I'm going to have 3 conversations that last more than 7 minutes, or when I approach things with those intentions, I find that I attract the right people that want to do business with me, because I've stood in, I was the lighthouse. David and I talked about this on my podcast, where when we're the lighthouse, when we're crystal clear on our intentions and our approach and what it is that we want our outcomes to look like, we're able to be the lighthouse, stand in that, and then somehow the universe conspires to our success. It conspires to bring those people into us. So I love what you're saying in identifying those conversations that are not of value. But if you want to have them, maybe set the intention. Hey, you know what? I want to pour into this person because they're a friend, but I'm going to limit it to the next 7 minutes. Or I want to pour into this person, but I'm going to do that Friday night or Saturday night because that will be my social time. It will feed my soul, but I'm not going to use my business time to have conversations with certain people in my network, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. A
Totally.
quick point, and then we'll come to you, Lisa, on the more formal number one. But there was a leader that once said, you don't understand. Like I have 15,000 different outcomes that I'm fulfilling on all in the same moment. And maybe 15,000 was an exaggeration, but we have multiple outcomes that may be fulfilled upon, even just in this podcast. Like it might lead to a connection between the two of you that leads to an idea. And that's actually part of why we might do a podcast. I want to develop relationships with you. You want to develop relationships with other people. We might find a nugget of information that gets posted on social media that leads to a connection that we didn't even know was going to happen. We had that happen in our team meeting last week. Angelica shared a recording of our team meeting and prayer in the Philippines to her audience. It now has over, I think, 50,000 views. And
61.
like we're now going to do that on a regular basis and see what else that audience wants. So we have no idea. We had a team meeting. I didn't know it was recorded. I didn't know it was going to be posted, and now has led to thousands and thousands of views of something that resonated that we were just doing as a team. So I'll pause there because I can go on forever. But Lisa, back to you. Point number one. What's a key number for you? Or how do you look at key numbers in terms of you, your business, and what you're up to?
Yeah, I never consider myself a numbers person. I'm more of that, soft skills, touchy-feely, compassion, or heart-centered, all of that. And then somebody taught me about spreadsheets, and I'm not good at spreadsheets, so I don't want to give the illusion that that is the case. But I have a fairly large spreadsheet that tracks money in, expenses out. I look at numbers. I won't say daily, but I look at the bank account. I look at the stock portfolio. I look at where the numbers are and where I might be able to make micro shifts to capitalize on opportunities that are available. How much cash am I sitting in? If something shows up that I want to invest in, do I have enough to make that decision? What's not working right now? So I tend to use a spreadsheet and actually follow, I won't say a budget, because budget means that maybe I have to stay within certain limits. It's more of a look back budget for me is like, where am I spending? At the beginning of the year, I kind of project what do I want to spend on housing? What do I want to spend on cars, on personal cares, all of those things, entertainment, travel, all of those things are in there, but I don't allow it to restrict my mindset. If I want to go out and beyond those numbers, I have permission to do that as an entrepreneur. But I like to look back. this morning on the Morning Rush, we talked about it being a review day. Ben Curtis mentioned that it's a review day. I know Brian, David, you do review days as well, where you check in for the rest of the week. I do a review day for my numbers. Finance Friday gives me a chance to look back and say, what did I spend this week and what did I bring in? And the number that I'm looking for is, I call it the net number. What is my net? If I have one client and I'm netting X number of dollars, or if I have 10 clients and I'm netting the same amount of dollars, where's the highest and best use of my time? And so that's part of a mindset. Like, I want to charge more and have one client because I know it'll give me more energy. But part of my mission is to have impact, and impact is influencing more people, not less people. So there's this tug of war that happens. I know in business, higher dollars, less clients, I have more energy to serve people at a higher level, but that eliminates a lot of the people that I want to serve, which are entrepreneurs, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So being in tune with those things is important. And part of it is personal decisions. I don't necessarily do what's optimal for most business people because that's not my mission. At my age, I've already been in business for 40 plus years. I want to serve in a different way. I want to have influence. I want to help people find the right path and get them on that path. So volume is more important. The number of people that I get to talk to is more important than the number of dollars that I'm bringing in at the moment. But more dollars allow you to do more things. I won't disagree with that. But I just want to kind of give an idea that there is no right answer for this. And part of it is we each individually have to define what that looks like. Some of the ways that I look at numbers are: one, financial independence, financial freedom, and then what's my retirement number? And I think we all need to know that. If you were to quit your job today, what does that retirement number look like? How much do you need to have to retire? Financial independence to me is, if I got sick and had to take a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months off, do I have enough money to take care of myself for that time? And financial freedom is that number that allows me to work for myself. When is my business making enough money that I can work for myself and not work for somebody else? So setting that as a target for an entrepreneur and achieving that target consistently, knowing that they're going to reach it every month, that's freedom in my mind. It's not having all the money in the world. It's being able to produce what it is that you need to take care of yourself. So those are the most important numbers that I look at for me and that I work with entrepreneur clients to find.
Love that.
I would say mic drop. She's 100% right. Like, that's just whatever. Take that clip and just listen to it every morning. One of the words I had on my paper in very big bold letters was retirement. 100%. Like all the numbers that you said. And the only thing I'll add on top of that is, for me, I have a son, and I also think of the number of what I want to leave to him.
Love it.
But 110%, you hit it out of the park.
That's it. See, we might go viral just because of Lisa's brilliance here this morning. But Trina, I think it ties in because you've recently, I heard, at the tail end of what Lisa was saying, you've recently had a kind of health challenge and event, and that had you take a pause and probably recalibrate some things. You probably had what's come out of that in terms of like this conversation, but maybe bring to life some of what you experienced and where that's maybe shifted some things.
What really sat with me, and I think Tony had mentioned it, was heart math, right? Because there is a heart math of coherence of her heartbeat, the grounding, but it's that sense of, retirement. To me, I'm never retiring. I have a day job that I'm mitigating into my retirement career, passion career. I don't ever want to retire. I want to travel and work. I want to build. I want to grow. And that's just a part of my overall well-being and my mindset and how I look at life. I'm coming up to a birthday. Chronological age means nothing to me. It's lifestyle and what I do. And right now, when we're talking health-wise, where sometimes life gives you a real pause and reflection, I'm at beginning 8th week of a hip replacement. So in my progress, because I'm a real number-orientated measure, working out, distance, travel, push hard, I've had to recalibrate how I look at numbers, because healthcare system goes, listen to your body. Well, or just go along, go with the flow. Trina doesn't know how to go along with the flow. Trina needs to know how many steps I've taken, how far have I hiked, what was the altitude of the distance. And they're telling me, stop counting your numbers. And I'm like, I can't. That causes anxiety for me to stop counting my numbers of okay, week 8, how far have I progressed from week 1 with a walker? And that's another story of you don't realize your biases until you're put into that position. And how many biases do we have when it comes to numbers and how we use and reflect numbers in business, in life, in choices? So it's made me change my language in being mindful, right? I can still count, but I'm mindful in my form, in my strength. I'm methodical to a deeper degree in numbers, in counting. And so something simple, and I just had a checkup with the doctor and the physiotherapist just this last Friday. And so, numbers, that's a beat, that's music. I said, when can I dance? And they looked at me like I had two heads going, okay, no, how about, even though they said you're off restrictions, and then I go, okay, great, so I can do this, and dance. And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you just said I'm off restrictions. And they said for the dancing, they're like, first, you need to master the form. So master your numbers, get your spreadsheet, learn to do a spreadsheet. I need to learn to do a spreadsheet because I'm avoidant in that. Fearful, right? I'll admit it on here. But you need to master the form, master your numbers. Then you need to build strength and the endurance. So that's that repetitive practice. How often do we look at the numbers that we need to look at in business and in life and in choices? And then once you got those two mastered, then you can take those risks and those jarring quick movements and maybe, go and invest on a quick stock, go take that random trip. And that is where the dancing comes in. But before you can get to the dancing and the numbers and the jarring and the risks, you have to be methodical and you have to create that form first and master it, and then master the strength and the endurance of the form.
Yeah. I love this is like it's funny because when you start talking about numbers, it brings to life, I think, emotions, challenges. I heard avoidance, I heard maybe over measuring and monitoring. And so, there's different, I think for anybody tuning in and thinking about this, it's worth knowing how you orient around numbers. Like, are you avoidant of them or do you love numbers? Do you love them too much? Are you too avoidant? And there's this whole spectrum of it, but it's a worthwhile conversation because, they say what you can measure, you can manage, and then you can adjust. And then it sounds like you can be strategic and you just don't want to, go over the top with it. So there's like kind of a happy medium and a happy balance. With that, let's just because of time, we've got 2 more topics, but what we'll do is we'll do it's almost like we'll do like a laser round. So everybody will get a chance to just answer the question pretty quickly. And then we'll do like a final of what do you want to leave everybody else with if you had like some wisdom about numbers that you wanted to convey to the audience. But point number 2 is clarity through measurement. How does knowing your number create focus and freedom? So maybe like 30 seconds each. Like how does knowing numbers create focus and freedom? For me, I'll lead us off. So I think when you have clarity, when you have awareness, for me, it's like even at the beginning of the day, I know exactly where my business stands. I know exactly what's on my calendar. I know the number of meetings that I have or don't have. I know the time that I have available to me. That for me frees me up because now I'm not like in this gray zone where I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure what's coming my way. I'm not sure the state of affairs. Like I know my stuff and I know where we're heading. And so the next action and all the actions that I have to take are very, very clear. That gives me a lot of sanity rather than insanity. I will pass it to Brian. Brian, what do you got on this question? How does knowing your number create focus and freedom?
So the analogy that I like to use is imagine you're on a boat or a ship and you get stranded on a desert island. And you're like, okay, night is coming. We need to eat. Doesn't matter if you're by yourself or with 50 people, doesn't matter. The first thing you need to do is take inventory of what you have. And without that inventory, you don't know how to ration the food. You don't know how you're going to have shelter or anything else. And that creates the clarity, that creates the game plan, so you know how to lay it out. And what I like about that analogy is, like a lot of people, like Trina said, you know, it is a fearful thing. There's a negative emotion of some sort. And so what I like about it is, okay, you woke up today, you have this challenge, let's do the inventory, let's put it all out there, and let's come up with it, because without that, you're just shooting in the dark.
Shots fired. Shots in the dark. Lisa, what do you got? Does it give you freedom, focus? What's your view on it?
Yeah. Again, coming back to, I know I sound like I do numbers, but it's not my favorite thing. So we talked earlier today on the Morning Rush about gamifying things. And so for me to get my team on board, it has to be a game. And one of the things they did, that we did when I had a brokerage firm, was we wanted to make $100,000 a month. We wanted to hit $100,000 a month. So I had fish bowls brought in and filled them with 100,000 grand candy bars. And everybody, if you did something successful, somebody would throw a candy bar at you. And we had these candy bars, and they were on the desks, and they were at the front entrance on the reception desk. They were, in the trading room. They were every place you could see. 100,000 grand, 100,000 grand, 100,000 grand. We not only did it 1 month, we did it, I think it was 14 or 15 consecutive months. And as a small independent firm, to be able to do that, it was pretty darn extraordinary. I mean, we're talking about young kids. I think I was in my early 30s at that point. So this was quite a few years ago. But what we did is we gamified it, and we put the whole team on board. Our company is going to be successful. This is the target. Everybody in that room, in that business, knew what the target was. And, we didn't have to look at the spreadsheets. The behavior started to follow that gaming system. So I think it's important to know our numbers, but we shouldn't hide it in a spreadsheet. Somehow we have to bring it into our day-to-day life and focus on what's the target? Where is it that you're headed in a fun way? Because when we have angst about it, or we have anxiety behind that number, it pushes it away. It doesn't draw it in. It doesn't bring it to us. So we can gamify our numbers. That's what my takeaway is for this one.
I love that. Don't hide it in a spreadsheet, bring it to light, and also make it fun. Gamify it. Because like if we're really like almost like carrying it like a heavy weight, man, we're not going to be free and loose and actually producing in ways that I think are optimal for how we operate. I love that, Lisa. Who else we got? Tony, the stat man. Tony, the stat man. What do you got around numbers and freedom and focus? What does it bring for you?
So for me, I just want to hit on what Lisa said, because it's funny. I used to do a lot of leadership conferences and stuff, and we would bring out Play-Doh, and we would have like whatever the statistic was, whatever those numbers were, and we were maybe trying to reach a certain area or a certain space, or whatever. We would say, okay, we'd break everybody up in teams. So, you had 200, 300 people there, and we'd have like all these teams, like 30 or 40 teams, and there'd be a bunch of Play-Doh out, and they actually had to design, each team had to design a way to overcome whatever statistic that was. So some had to design, like they did like targets, they made little circles and circles, and they're like, we need to reach out to this area. One was like drawing an arrow to a certain space, and in that space they had to collect the information to grab it over here. And it was pretty cool, just to kind of hit on what Lisa said. The gamify, it's been going on for a while, but a lot of people don't utilize it.
Bringing out the Play-Doh, the play games element of it. Very good. Trina, what do you got? What are you thinking about knowing numbers, focus, and freedom?
What I hear here, and it comes back to just my motto I created, SRSR, self-reflection strengthens resiliency. We think resiliency is eat well, sleep well, have a community. Resiliency is risk mitigation. So when you look at personally, professionally, financially, the numbers, resilient is risk mitigation. And now you want to become presilient, which means use that self-reflection, gather all that data, take that fear and make it into a fun event to learn and grow. And then you can make concise, clear decisions based on all your data you collect, based on your life experiences.
I loved it the first time you said it, presilient. Can you give us just a very micro definition? Like, what does it mean to be presilient rather than resilient?
So resilient, right? Bounce back, but bouncing back is not always good, is not always healthy, is not always okay. We want to learn and grow. So resilience is about preparing proactive resilience so it's in your back pocket for decision making, increase your risk intelligence, your adaptability in this VUCAD world. Our world is changing every day. It's volatile, it's complex. We can't plan it. So you want to have proactive resilience. And that's where I just finished a grad cert through with Dr. Gav Schneider in Australia, is the one who termed the coin and the framework and the concept of becoming resilient, which in my mind, it resonated because what it meant to me was trauma-informed resiliency, conflict resiliency.
Amazing. I love that. Proactive resilience, because you always think about, oh, resilience happens and I'm resilient because I went through a bunch of stuff, but am I getting prepared for those things that are coming my way so that when they do come my way, it's like, I'm ready. I thought about this.
Bouncing back isn't always bouncing back to the greatest place. Why do we assume bouncing back was so great or healthy or secure in our numbers?
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up in just a moment. Brian has to run. Brian, any final thoughts before you do bounce out, or are you gone? You're gone. All right. Brian is out. So we've got the four of us to wrap up. The final question is the number that defines your life. It doesn't necessarily need to.
Yeah, I think I'm getting choppy area, but peace and love.
All right. Love you, Brian. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. The number that defines your life, and we don't have to go that grandiose, but you might have it. One, you might have a number that defines your life, or you might say, actually, if there were a number that defines my life, that would be pretty cool. I listen to a guy who says, impact 1 billion. He says it on every single recording he does. He says it on, it's this guy Billy Alsbrooks that I enjoyed listening to and still do enjoy listening to, but he says impact 1 billion, impact 1 billion. It's always in his entry, his closing, his promotional stuff. He wants and is clear his life is about impacting 1 billion. So I'll take that on. I want to impact 1 billion, but we're going to go around the horn here. I don't know who's up. Lisa, I think you're up. What do you have a number or something that you look at in terms of like beyond business, and it might be business related, that like is personal to you?
I'm going beyond business, and my number's 10. 10 days of travel per quarter. 10 days of travel per quarter, because that resets me. It resets my mind. It gets me out of my comfort zone. I go meet people from around the world, from different countries, different cultures, and it opens up a world of possibility for me. And I've been doing that for several years, and I stick to it. It's my one most important number, 10 days of travel per quarter.
That is true. You've said that before. I've heard that many times before. And every time I do, I'm like, that's awesome. That is awesome. All right. Very cool. Cool to be reminded of that number. Tony, you got a number? Anything that pops for you in terms of life?
So for life, for me, it's giving people hope. I don't have a specific number, but it's whenever the opportunity arises that I can do whatever I can to equip others. So you guys may know, I don't know, but I'm a pastor. I've worked with youth, so I was youth pastor, and it's difficult being a youth pastor. You see some of the worst hurts for such a young age. You're like, wow, they had to go through that. Oh, they got that kind of suffering, that kind of trial. And so to be able to pour into others, to me, that's like the highlight of my life. Everything else is that's the foundation of everything else. So whenever I'm working, I want to honor those that I'm entrusted with and they've entrusted me with. So I want to honor them, but it kind of all flows out of that. I want to give people hope, whether that's in life or in business or anything else, everything. Not a specific number, but whatever that number, I just want to be faithful to it.
Beautiful. Love it. Trina, any
You know
number
what?
for you?
Yeah, Tony, that was just like the beautiful entry into the number, which will resonate with you. So, and today's the number 7. It was a full moon. And what comes to me is the intergenerational legacy of resilience. We know right now there's 5 generations in the workforce. Right now, we know that trauma sits on our epigenetics, and we know intergenerational and historical trauma through indigenous and now epigenetic studies passes on to 7 generations. Now is our time through numbers to influence and create the next 7 generations to have intergenerational resilience in how we use and work with numbers.
That's great. Thank you. Love
if
it.
we had more time, I would love to dig into what you just said. Like, how do you know that? Who said that? And maybe that's a future podcast that we'll get into a little bit more
Oh, there's
detail.
scientific data now and research going
Oh,
into
I know, but like there's scientific data on both sides, and I've seen it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
It's-
just playing. I'm
Yeah,
just
the
playing.
heart of what I want to leave with because of post-COVID is we need to create now intergenerational influence, legacies, and numbers, heartfelt, business, personal, professional, health related, infinity and 360. It keeps going. It doesn't stop.
Mhm.
So you segued us into the final piece of this conversation, which is what do we want to leave people with? Everybody here, like one thing that you're like, around numbers or around this topic or anything that's on your heart at the end of this conversation. It might be just words of wisdom around numbers, around life, around business. That'll be our final thing here. And also, how do we get in contact with you? So Lisa, Trina, you kind of kicked it off. What do you want to leave people with and how do people get in contact with you?
Become conflict curious about numbers, whether it's your health numbers at the doctors, your financial numbers in the workplace, the cost of conflict. It comes to numbers. So become curious, not avoidant.
Get
And
curious
you can
about
reach me
numbers.
at TLR Solutions for Conflict Inc., my website, or online on LinkedIn. I'm there. Is the best ways to get a hold of me. My website and phone number is on the website, email and that. So
Amazing. And if anybody needs Trina's contact, you can also just reach out to me. Lisa, what's a final thought here and how do we get in contact with you?
Let go of the fear. There's no rules. We've been misled to believe that there's rules around everything, the way that we dress, the way that we speak, the clothes, the people we talk to, the friends we associate with, how we do business. And there's really no rules. We get to make up the rules. So let go of the fear. And if you are not happy where you're at right now, find somebody who's going to help you to get to that place, wherever that is for you. And there's no judgment at all, at least with the people in this room. I know each and every one of them. We are heart-centered folks and we're here to help you. So get the help that you need. If you want to be an entrepreneur, great. If you want to be more successful in your business as an employee and helping somebody else to achieve their dreams, but you're not happy doing that, reach out because we'd love to pour into you and help you to find that shining light. We're all a bunch of lighthouses here, and we're shining our light, bringing you into the fold and helping you to design the life that you desire and to reach the dreams that only you can dream.
I love it. More than just a bit of insight. And some more insight, Lisa, how do we get in contact with you? How does somebody find you?
abitofinsight.com. You can go there, and I'm on all the socials: Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram.
Amazing. abitofinsight.com. Tony, my amazing co-host, the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things, stats, faith, otherwise. What do you got? What's your final thought?
So a little bit to piggyback off Lisa, it's interesting when she was talking, I remembered one of my professors that told me that where she says there's no judgment, just go and get it done, like you can do this, right? And he used to say he had a chart, he showed that in your earlier stages of life, you had the highest level of caring about what people think, right? And so then you went into your 20s and was kind of started tailing off, getting even in your 30s. And then as you start to get in your 40s, it started going lower and lower. By the time you were like 45, 50, you're like, I don't even care what anybody thinks. I'm just going to get it done. And what he was teaching is like, when you're in that earlier portion in your 20s and in your teens, you need to be this person to be successful. Don't even worry about what anybody thinks. Just to piggyback off there. And then just to kind of end on the subject matter is, a lot of people are afraid that numbers can actually limit creativity, but they actually don't limit creativity. A lot of times they liberate it. And when you know your metrics, you're not reacting anymore. You're actually directing. And I think we talked about this with Brian. Clarity does kill chaos. And we think of a number as like a North Star. So when you measure what matters, you eliminate noise. The fog kind of lifts and the decisions sharpen. So you get more signal compared and less noise, which is what we want. And so for founders, clarity through numbers means freedom from guesswork, stress, and burnout ultimately.
Whew. As we wrap up, I feel like that needs to be played again in slow motion. And so that was brilliant, Tony. I love it. Less noise. And I think we think about numbers like what's our context? Because numbers could limit or liberate. I love that quote as well. So this was a beautiful conversation. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Trina. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Brian, who's no longer here, for joining this 7th episode, and it is November 7th for this episode. So there's sevens gone wild in this conversation. It was my favorite number as a kid. I wore it on my hockey journey jersey from youth to college. And anyway, have a beautiful, blessed day. If you tuned into this, if you got something out of this, I highly recommend reaching out to any one of the individuals that stood out for you. Send a comment and have a great day. We'll talk soon.